Joining me to discuss the $6.4 billion budget is County Supervisor Jim Desmond. Good morning, Mr. Desmond.
Hey, good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Just because I'm so conditioned to always ask you COVID-19 questions, I promise you we'll spend the bulk of this conversation on the budget. But can you update us on our dashboard situation and the metrics that we're using to measure our current status?
As far as COVID's concerned?
Yes. Are we? Last I checked, we were seeing improvement up and down the 13 metrics. And I was just wondering if that's resonating with you and everybody, some of your fellow county supervisors.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's good to see the numbers coming down. You know, San Diegans, we're doing the right thing as far as the mask and the social distancing and as best we can. And you know, it's good to see that, especially for the school year, as schools have the opportunity to put in waivers to start open again. But you know, today the big focus is going to be today, and also on Wednesday night we have budget hearings, and these were put off. Normally we do them in June; they were put off until August because of COVID, and because of that, you know, and it's a $6.4 billion budget, like you said, and what's unique about this year's budget is this is really the first time in a long time that we've actually had to spend and go into our reserves. The county for a long time, you know, even while I was campaigning, was very much criticized for having, you know, a big chunk of reserves set aside, you know, for the rainy day or for the, you know, the catastrophe, and well, it hit. And basically we have 2 months worth of operating dollars set aside in reserves. And we're spending about 150 million of those reserves this year, and then potentially into the next year. And with this, so we're coming up with a plan to replenish and put that money back in there. But there's a lot of changes, about a 9% increase in health and human services, primarily dealing with homeless issues and the COVID issues, things like that. Sheriff's, you know, public safety is always a number one concern, but this is the public's opportunity today, all day from 9 a.m. until probably about 5 o'clock, and then starting at 6 p.m. on Wednesday night, we're going to have another public hearing, and if we don't get to everybody, we'll have an additional one. So this is the public's time to speak up and tell us how they want their dollars spent.
How do people participate, Mr. Desmond?
Well, you can go to the county's website and fill out a speaker slip there. It's going to be all virtual, and so you can do it by phone, so you don't have to come down, but you can, you know, you wait on hold until your name or number is called. And so it's fairly easy. Go to the county's website, get on board for the agendas for the board meeting, and be heard.
In these sessions, I know you're giving people a chance to voice their opinion, but does it ever change the outlook or the actual policy, the actual spending in this case?
Well, it does to some extent, and what we're presented with at this point is staff's recommendations. You know, and there's still some massaging that can be done, and the supervisors, and we probably will ourselves, do some changes at the end, maybe move some money here or there, or ask for additional money in certain areas than others. You know, and you know, last year we put more money towards veterans and more towards homeless, a lot more than it was ever spent in the past. And so we do. There are opportunities for some changes, but what we have to remember is, okay, if you want more money added here, you have to take it from somewhere else. You know, it's like the proverbial balloon. You squeeze it one way and it pops out another. So there is some balancing acts that have to go on. But no, yes, we do take input and you know, a lot of people come and speak up, and we listen.
You're a veteran of these kind of conversations. Where will the focus be, do you think? Where will people most have their attention put?
Well, I think COVID, definitely. They're going to have their attention put there on food, childcare, rent subsidies, you know, anything related to COVID, because that's where, you know, the hardest hit has been. So health and human services is where a lot of those dollars are spent. And like I said, we're already putting about a 9% increase into health and human services, and they are already the biggest chunk of the pie. Right now at $6.4 billion, about a third of those dollars goes to health and human services. And so, you know, we've been beefing up the efforts, you know, shelters and things like that, and making testing and everything else, all the COVID applications. So a lot of the emphasis is going to be there as we expect it to be.
Is there enough money in existence to to remedy the homeless situation as far as finding a place for everybody who's currently living on the street? Do we have the wherewithal to find them shelter, permanent shelter,
I think
semi-permanent
we have
shelter?
the wherewithal and the funds for most people to get them off the streets. However, you can't force anyone to get off the streets or to take aid or care. And that's kind of one of the frustrating things here in California is you can't force somebody into housing. They have to want it. And if they're more comfortable in the streets or in the riverbeds, there's not much we can do about it. To me, that's the biggest stumbling block for homeless. At least now with the COVID, we've been able to put them in shelters and keep them isolated and things like that. But after COVID goes away, it's unfortunate we may go back to where it was. So technically, we have vouchers for hotels. We have, apartment. We have not apartments so much. We have a few apartments, but we have places for them to go. But it's up to them to make that choice. And like I said, we have the carrot, but no stick.
And could you just again review I was talking at the same time as I was listening to you. Could you review the surplus situation one more time? You want to dip into how much of that surplus?
Well, it's reserves.
The reserve.
Into the reserves, and there's different types of reserve, but this is the unassigned reserves, which is basically 60 days worth of operating costs for San Diego County. So we spend, if you take 6.4 billion and divide it by 365, our burn rate's about $18 to $20 million a day. Now that includes some pass-through dollars and everything else, but it's a big burn rate. We actually have, I think, about $700 million in reserves. But that's the normal operating costs. And if we have a big tsunami or an earthquake or fire, and we need to still provide the senior services, the healthcare services, the food stamps, and those types of things, and foster care and everything else still has to be provided in a safe public safety. So we want to make sure that we have 60 days worth of reserves. And it sounds like a mountain of money, but we go through it pretty quick. Yeah. And we've kept that aside. And when I was campaigning, I got beat up for not wanting to spend reserves, and lo and behold, here we are. So that's one of the biggest differences. This election or this our budget cycle. This budget cycle, because we are dipping into the reserves right now to the tune of about 150 million, and we're probably going to be dipping in for the next couple of years as well, to backfill and to make sure we're still providing the services that we need until we can start to build that money back up again and get back to that 60-day reserve level.